Greetings, Inquisitor. Welcome to Imperial Doctrine. This will be one of my 2023 starting guides for the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes mobile game. It's intended to be a comprehensive guide that will take you through the first things to build in your account to make sure you get a successful start with the state of the game in 2023. Please remember on your way through, hit that like button. Helps me, helps the channel. I'd appreciate if you could help me out. The Imperial Doctrine is intended to give all necessary information for a player to start up at level 1 through about their first 9 months of gameplay. The intent of this starting guide is to optimize all the things that you get in the game in a way that focuses on what's truly important early in the game and gets you ready for what comes later. Shifting the priorities going into the mid-game will be no problem. This account will be developed and ready to go. The skill and commitment to succeed here are fairly challenging. Now, let me just say this path is manageable for people of any skill level. What I've done a little bit differently this year is I've put some time frames on things. The timelines is a bit aggressive, and it's meant for a player who's competitive, playing every day, making the most out of the free resources that are available to you in the game. So if it takes you a bit longer to meet the milestones than what I recommend, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean that you can't do the path. It simply means that, maybe you're not fully efficient or a little bit more casual, but it's fine. This path will still lead where you want to go. And anyway, there's some statistics about how you gather gear and shards from the game that bring a little bit of variability to it. But it'll be challenging to keep it on this timeline. If you're able to keep it on the timeline, then you're doing a really good job. I've also made some new player guides, and those are for people who may be new to the game, and they explain the theory crafting, how I see the state of the game right now, and it will explain a lot of why I'm building this starting guide the way I'm building it. So if you want to go watch those, that would be good to get started. Tells you a lot about the background of the game, what game modes are important, guilds, mods, everything that you might need to know before starting on this journey. This starting guide is good for free-to-play, but it also works just fine for Hyperdrive bundle. I am going to spend a little bit of time up front establishing some income teams to make sure that we're getting the most we can out of events to snowball the account. And then we'll go into our first big journey, building the Executor fleet. Conquest success will be good, but not that great. Performance and raids with this build will be okay. So overall, this path is going to be an increasingly powerful path for Grand Arena. It's going to be focused on 2 defenses with powerful offensive teams to clear the opponent's board. Also, you're going to have good teams for territory wars. And the account is going to do very well in early Darkside GOTB. For getting into a guild early on, getting Watt shards is important, and this build will do very well at that. So overall, this build is meant for players that want to build a good account, and they also favor player versus player. There will be a second version of this. It's going to be a separate holocron. It's going to be called Hope of the Rebellion. And it'll have similar concepts, but this one is going to optimize things through the Profundity fleet as the first major journey instead of the Executor. The intent for that, there will be even more income teams up front. It'll take longer to finish the first big journey, but the intention is to do a little better in PvE through guilds and Conquest. So if you're a PvP player, this is the right holocron for you. If you're more interested in the PvE aspects, check out Hope of the Rebellion and see which one fits your playstyle the best. Agenda for this holocron is to talk through blocks. Again, if you don't know what blocks are, please go back and watch the new player guides. I'll explain to you how this all works. We're going to talk about block 0 for account stabilization. We're going to talk about leveling the account up to 85. Assault battle preparation. We're going to talk about the fleet tier 3 ZETA challenge. It's a very important thing to be aware of and be ready for on your way up. We're going to talk extensively about how to use all the different shops in the game, including the store. We're going to build Executor in block 1 as our first major journey. We're going to finish the Executor and prepare for Block 2 at the end of the holocron. Talk a little bit about the next steps. So there's going to be a lot of information here. Let's get into it, and let's talk about the first teams. As you start out at level 1, there is a tendency for people to want to build a lot of different teams. Grand Arena requires about 6 teams just to get started. And the idea that you're going to be working on 6 to 8 teams at the start of the game sounds good. However, there is a mode called Galactic War, and Galactic War pairs you up against opponents, gives you matchups based on your galactic power. So if you come into the game at level 1 and you start working on building up, leveling up all the characters that they give you in the game, it increases your galactic power and needlessly increases the difficulty of Galactic War. Don't do that to yourself. We're going to focus down on 3 teams. In the early game, 3 teams is going to be plenty. There's no attrition to the teams. You can use them in the early game modes as much as you want, as many times as you want. And the more we focus on just a few teams, the better we're going to be able to gear them up and perform in the various game modes. We're going to have a light side team, a dark side team, and a fleet. So the first team that we're going to look at is our dark side characters. This is going to be used to unlock dark side nodes. It's also going to be the team that we use a lot in Galactic War, at first with modest gear levels. Eventually this team is going to change. We will have Veers in the lead, and in the early game we're actually going to use Iden Versio, and I'm not exactly sure whether Veers or Iden Versio lead is better for Galactic War. There's reasons to believe that Iden is actually going to do better in Galactic War, for example, than Veers will. So we're going to actually build them all. We're going to build 6 troopers in total right from the start, and you're going to have to experiment with your own account and figure out which version of the leadership works best for you. I suggest here start out with Iden, and then as the team gets stronger to switch it over to Veers. In order to get these characters, the ranged trooper comes on Dark Side 3A. It's a very early node. Iden Versio is available pretty quickly on Light Side 4D. That's also the node with a ship called the Vulture Droid. The Vulture Droid is a ship that we definitely want to get unlocked and get going early on. So this is a 2-for-1 node in that we get our Iden Versio and also the Vulture Droid. Admiral Piet will pick up off of Light Side 6B as soon as that's available. Stark comes out of the Guild Store. And then Snow Trooper can be farmed from a node or the Cantina. But your friendship points should always be used to unlock Bronzium packs for no other purchases than that. Snow Trooper comes quite frequently out of the Bronzium packs, so on your way to 85, most likely you will end up with a 7-star Snow Trooper or very close for free from the Bronzium packs. Veers comes from Light Side 4C, and he also comes from the Guild Event Store. We're going to talk about that a little more here in a bit. The second team is your light side team. This is light side characters going to be used to unlock the light side battles. Jedi Knight Anakin is going to be the character that you focus gear on the most. You're going to want to keep Mace geared quite well also. Mace is the captain of a capital ship, Admiral, so it's good to have gear on him. And he'll be able to tank pretty well. As long as he can tank, then you can get 3-star successes on these nodes. So think about giving Mace some pretty good gear and Jedi Knight Anakin on the light side. Ahsoka does have some recovery in her kit to help keep people alive, so that's nice as well. And Fives is in there just because he's a shop character and he's easy to get. And if you build this version of the team, then it's pretty straightforward. If you do build Fives, just be aware, one of his skills, there's an Omega skill that gives him taunt when he uses it. I strongly recommend not to put the Omega on that taunt skill. There are reasons later in the game where it's better if you don't have it, so just do without it. It doesn't help you that much, and it can hurt you later, so skip that Omega. Jedi Knight Anakin comes off a Dark Side 1B. Again, it's a node that's available quite early. Qui-Gon, Ahsoka, Fives all come out of the Cantina store, and then Mace Windu comes out of the Squad Arena store. Now, there is a better version of this team. When we get to the graphics and I show you what you're going to farm and how, there's very little room for extra characters to be farmed. Every bit of energy we're going to spend is spoken for in a way. So to make this team work, you have to farm Bastila Shan as your leader for these Jedi. 5s drops out of the team, and it leaves you with a team of all 5 Jedi. This is a very powerful early game team because Bastila Shan's leadership gives all Jedi protection up at the start of the battle. It's extra protection at the end of the battle. As long as your characters are alive when you go into the next battle, that protection refreshes at the start of the next battle. So each time you go progressively through Galactic War, your team will be protected again, and it's a very good team to make it through Galactic War, even at more challenging stages. The only way that I could find to reasonably make room for the Bastila farm within this is to, instead of Veers being farmed, instead we farm Bastila Shan with that energy that we would normally use for Veers. Veers can be purchased out of the Guild event store, and we go over to the Guild event store, and over time we just purchase Veers out of there. So there's reasons why you might not want to spend your Guild event tokens on Veers, but honestly, if it's my account to build, I'm going to build it this way. I'm going to farm the Bastila Shan, put her in charge of this team. Easier Galactic War wins, easier 3-star wins on your light side nodes, and then I'll just get Veers out of the Guild event store. The third team is the team that's eventually going to be built up into fleet. Now, as you progress your way through the game towards 60, for the first few weeks of play, you're going to start unlocking Newt Gunray to lead the squad. Having Newt Gunray at 7 stars is convenient. He's a good scoundrel for some events, and you'll want to have him at some point in the game. So it's a good character to build. You can build him, lead the Geo team at first, do the Geo Spy from Cantina, Geo Soldier from Cantina, and Poggle. Poggle comes out, there's a mistake in the presentation. It's actually a Galactic War Store purchase. So Poggle comes from the Galactic War Store. You'll buy him out of that shop. And then Kylo Ren Unmasked. We'll talk about his ship later. But in the early game, when you're trying to make a decent fleet, farming this node is very convenient because Kylo Ren Unmasked as a pilot and his ship, this TIE Silencer, are on the same node in the Cantina. And farming them both at the same time gets you the character, gets you the ship. It's an easy way to qualify for the Tier 3 Zeta Challenge. So we're going to look at this team. When you hit level 60, Sunfac will become available out of the Galactic War Store. And he's also a pilot, so he will replace Kylo Ren in this team. And then at level 83, the Geo Brute Alpha is finally available to lead your team, and that will replace Newt Gunray. So when you first start farming the Geo Spy and Geo Soldier, you don't have to gear them up too much. But as you approach level 60, let's say when you get to level 50 or 55, then your focus really has to shift, and you really have to work on Spy and Soldier and pour as much gear into them as you can, and get those characters built up for fleet. We're also going to be farming the IG-2000 and Xanadu Blood. The IG-2000 farm will start relatively early off of Light Side 6E. Xanadu Blood farm will start much later, but it'll be part of the Executor fleet, so we eventually will have to farm that. In terms of fleet, we are going to be farming Jedi Knight Anakin's ship. It's not really part of our build. It doesn't fit with the Executor. We're going to build the Malevolence as our first main capital ship with Guild Event Token 2. But Anakin's ship is... Anakin as a character has a very simple kit, but he's an incredibly effective character. Similarly, his ship has a very simple kit, but it's very effective, and his special ability has buff immunity, which is one of the things that helps you deal with Hound's Tooth early in the game. Well, all through the game, really. Putting a buff immunity onto Hound's Tooth makes it vulnerable for you to take out. So other people will build the Hound's Tooth, so we are going to build Anakin's ship and use that as a reinforcement, specifically to be able to bring it in and take out that Hound's Tooth. Slave 1 will be available to farm. Sunfac also comes from the shops. The TIE Advanced also comes from the shops. So for all three of those ships, the TIE Advanced, Sunfac ship, and Slave 1, we're going to be farming them out of fleet, but we're also going to be buying them out of the shop at the same time. If you get comfortable with the rate of buying them out of the shop and you decide you don't want to do farming, you can always farm Fleet 3C normal. There's Mark 12 HoloLenses in there that will be needed for relic characters for the rest of the time that you play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So any of these ships that you decide you're in good shape on and don't need to farm, that you're comfortable to buy out of the shops, use that energy. If you don't have a target for it, you can always farm 3C. It's a really great node. You'll never go wrong. All right, so for the block farming, here's the first visual. Now, I talked about this in my new player guides, and basically what you're going to see here, you're going to see 2-week blocks. Each column represents 2 weeks of playtime, more or less. As you start playing the game, you'll start leveling up. You'll start unlocking the higher level nodes. So you'll see that the IG 2000 doesn't kick in until sometime around week 4 or 5. That's how long I estimate it will take before you even see that the node that has the IG 2000 on it. So that's why the starting times for these characters are staggered. There's a total of 6 daily hard farms that are required throughout most of the journey, and that represents your daily reset, 3 energy refreshes on light and dark side energy, and then probably sometime the next day, as the game gives you more free energy, you'll have to finish up that 6th farm. So it's a pretty aggressive strategy. It doesn't leave a whole lot of extra light and dark side energy floating around to buy gear. If you watch my gear video, I have a video that talks all about how to get most of the gear that you need out of the shops. So you'll be doing a lot of that, but you will have enough energy to spot farm some gear and keep your characters moving up. Plus all of these hard farms that you're going to be doing have gear on them, so you'll be getting it from the nodes there as well. In the middle section, you'll see the sideways blocks. Those represent the timing that we're setting out for relicking characters. We'll get to level 85 about week 12 to 14. As soon as we do, we're going to start working on our first relic, and we'll work our way through the relics that are required for the Executor, and I'll talk you through that in detail. At the bottom, we have those fleet farms that we talked about: Jedi Knight Anakin, Slave 1, TIE Advanced, and Sunfac, and we'll see that too. So here's a little closer up detail. In the first couple weeks, there's really not a lot available for us. We can go ahead and grab the Dark Trooper for a couple weeks, and maybe 3 or 4 weeks before we find the node for Piet. We don't plan to build the Dark Trooper. It's just a character that we'll want someday that is good to farm early on. Jedi Knight Anakin, similarly, we're going to want him, so as soon as we can get to his node, we're going to start farming Jedi Knight Anakin. Range Trooper, similar to Dark Trooper, we're going to farm him until the Hound's Tooth node becomes available. That'll get us a functional Range Trooper that we can use with our trooper teams, and we'll leave him unfinished partway through. Iden Versio, also similar. So we're going to have a longer time to farm on Iden Versio, but the goal with her is to get her probably about 6 stars. The real goal is to get the Vulture Droid unlocked, and hopefully we can get that Vulture Droid 4 stars for sure, but if we could get it to 5 stars, that would be great. But then the way the timing works, we really have to switch over to farming Queel and the Bomber to stay on track for the Executor journey. In the next slot, you see Veers. And Veers has, 8 weeks worth of farming here from about week 2 to week 10. Then you have to pick up Bosk. And there's kind of a gap there where we're picking up Bosk. And then if you look at Jedi Knight Anakin up top, it takes about 14 to 16 weeks to farm a character to 7 stars. We're going to assume that we might get a few Jedi Knight Anakin shards from other places in the game. So we're giving ourselves about 14 weeks in total to farm Jedi Knight Anakin. And then we pick up Veers on week 14 after we're finished with that farm. So Veers is there. We're going to finish him out to 7 stars, but he actually appears in 2 different spots. So you'll farm him for a while, you'll get him unlocked, and then you'll go back to him once you get Jedi Knight Anakin up to 7 stars. So that talks you through kind of the character hard farms that we're doing. On the ship side of things, again, we'll be able to get Jedi Knight Anakin and Slave 1 sooner, and then TIE Advanced and Sunfac a couple weeks later. I have them showing up in here. Just farm them as soon as you can get to them. Again, it's a rough timeline, but it'll make sense to you as soon as you're got those nodes available. Get on it and get farming them. All right, now let's spend a lot of time as you're leveling up toward 85, how we're going to use these shops. If you spend your shop currency well, it'll put you ahead of everyone else. If you waste your shop currency, you can't get it back. You can't get the time back, you can't get the currency back. So let's start right from the start of the game trying to use these shops in the right way to support this journey and get your account snowballing as hard as we can. I'm going to strongly recommend what I call a bank method. There's certain characters and certain things that you're going to want from each store. Save a bank of currency. Don't spend yourself down to 0. And that way, whenever these rare things show up, even if they show up 3 times in a row, you'll still have the currency to buy them every time they show up. Fleet, for example, the Fleet store. I've had people tell me before, wow, it's really hard because there's all this stuff in the Fleet store that I want. All you have to do is just take 2 days and don't spend anything in the Fleet store. And if you're getting moderate placement in Fleet, decent placement, you should be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 Fleet credits. And that's it. You just need to get that bank in place. And that way, every time you see Razor Crest, Lord Vader, or Darth Vader, those kinds of things, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But for all of these shops, think about that. Get a bank, and then don't ever spend to 0 unless you're buying the absolute top priority. The first shop that you'll see is the featured shipments. At the top, there's gear that costs crystals, but if you scroll down just a couple rows, you'll find 4 pieces of gear in there every time the shop refreshes. It refreshes every 6 hours, and there'll be 4 pieces in there that you can buy for credits. This is the only place in the game where you can reliably just come in and exchange for credits. Now you'll see I had 400 of something and I still bought it out of here for credits. This gear also can be used in the Jawa scavenger, and the gear can be broken up to make materials for relicking your characters later. So most of this, there's a few pieces of gear that may not be salvageable, but in general, just buy all 4 of these slots for credits. It's a good use of your credits and easy gear to get virtually for free. The cost is very low. In weekly shipments, I'm going to suggest don't look through this store. Even if there is something that you would want to buy here early game, you would want to buy the gear by clicking on the character, going to the gear and buying it there. You don't want to get lost in the shop looking at all the things that you could buy. You may randomly click on something you don't want. Just stay out of the shop for now. In the Cantina store, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to unlock a bunch of this stuff, right? If we build the version of the team with 5s in it, we're going to need Ahsoka, Qui-Gon Jinn, 5s if you're building it that way, or if you're building the Bastila Shan version, then you don't have to have 5s. And then Boba Fett, of course, is part of the Executor journey, so we'll have to get him started. I recommend unlocking each one of these characters first, then take Ahsoka to 7 stars, then Qui-Gon, then Boba. In the guild, again, we're going to keep a bank. And out of here, we need Stark and Dengar. Stark, you need relatively early on for your trooper team. Dengar, you absolutely have to have for the Executor journey, of course. But we can buy Stark first and prioritize that. Buy Dengar when we see him. And we'll be able to buy Dengar over time in order to get him for the Executor journey. And it'll be fine. For the guild activity store, there's gear in there that's very good. There's Carbantes, stun cuffs show up in here. The line that I'm showing here really has some gear that's going to help your characters as you are trying to gear them up going to level 85. So if you've got a bank, and let's say your bank is 1,800, each purchase of a character is 450, so that represents 4 character purchases. And let's say you had 2,500. You could make a couple purchases of gear out of here for stuff that you need. As long as you keep that 1,850 to buy the characters whenever they show up, you're good to go. So build up your bank, then buy the good gear. There's 4 pieces of gear in here: Mark 7 Nubian scanners, the Mark 5 furnaces, 5 droid collars, and 6 Nubian discs. They show up in a few shops throughout the game, but those 4 things specifically are raid and shop gear only. They're not farmable in the game. So if you're short on Mark 7 Nubian scanners, for example, and you want to go farm them, you're not going to be able to farm them. So you will indeed have to look for them in the shop and try to figure out a way to save up enough currency to grab them. Otherwise, you have to wait for that you have to wait to get lucky in a raid and get that gear out of a raid. So it comes from raid, it comes from shops, but you can't farm it. In the Squad Arena store, we're going to unlock Mace, we're going to unlock IG-88, and unlock Newt. We're going to take Mace to 7 stars and Newt to 7 stars. And again, for these characters that we're unlocking, you don't necessarily have to build them up to level 60 and put gear on them and skill them up. You can wait on IG-88 until you later on when you need him or need his ship, right? So you could just start collecting the shards, leave him at level 1. Don't get carried away. Don't increase your galactic power for no reason. Tarkin also comes out of the shop. Grabbing Tarkin is going to help you a lot with the Tier 3 Zeta challenge. You may or may not need to take him all the way to 7 stars. 6 stars should be good enough for the Tier 3 Zeta challenge, but if you get hung up on that for some reason, then it is a possibility to take your Tarkin all the way to 7 stars, which you'll want to do eventually anyway, but it's not something you're in a hurry to do. After you get these characters bought out to 7 stars, then you're going to spend most of your Squad Arena currency buying Prestige. Prestige is the currency that's used to level the skills on a capital ship like the Executor. In the Galactic War store, we really want to buy ships out of here. I've capitalized ships. It's really ships. Then it's characters. And then it's feeding the shard shop. My advice here, and I'm going to talk about it again later, do not buy characters out of here that you're not going to use right away. So at the point where you're buying ships, either buy the ships or save Galactic War Store currency. When you are working your way up to level 60 before fleet's available, buy Poggle, only Poggle, no other things. Save all your other currency until ships are available, then buy ships. When you have your ships and you have your Poggle, then you take this shop and you continue to buy ships, and you feed those ships into the shard shop so that you can make more purchases over there. The Galactic War Store, you're going to be looking for all 3 of the Geos. Sunfac shows up rarely in there, so you'll get quite a bit of Spy and Soldier. You'll be able to build those ships pretty quickly. Sunfac will take longer to build. You'll be farming it as well. It just takes a while. So if you're 16 weeks in the game and you still don't have your Sunfac to 7 stars, just realize that that's not unusual. You're also going to want to get Ahsoka Tano's ETA Starfighter and the Imperial TIE Fighter. All right, once you have your ships, you're always going to want to keep that bank. Keep that bank so every time Sunfac shows up, you can always buy him. That's the early game priority. 1,200 Galactic War Store currency is enough. Again, if he shows up 3 times between Galactic Wars, you'll be able to buy him all 3 times for 400 each. So that's your baseline. Don't ever spend below 1,200 unless you're actually buying the Sunfac ship. In the mod store, mods cost a lot, respectively. They cost a lot of credits or a lot of shipbuilding materials. Even if it's a really good mod, statistically, they have a low likelihood of working out how you really want them to. Later in the game, you're going to spend a lot in the mod store when you have the credits to do it. Early in the game, you will never have extra credits. Stay out of the mod store. You can look at it, but for your first, I dare say for your first 6 months of play, don't buy a mod unless it's the best mod you've ever seen in your life. Just don't do it. Stay out of that shop. In the fleet arena, there are a ton of priorities. We're going to go through them detail by detail. So we're going to save a big bank, especially at first. We're going to try to keep 3,000 in there. So if we have 3,000 currency and we see Ahsoka Tano's Starfighter in here, we are not going to buy it. It's not a high enough priority for us to spend under 3,000. Okay? The number one priority that you have, we're planning to build Executor. You must buy Razor Crest every single time it shows up. From the moment that you hit level 60 and you unlock this corner until the time when you have 330 shards and the Razor Crest is ready to go to 7 stars. If you don't do that, it will take you too long and you could potentially have the whole journey done and be waiting on Razor Crest. We don't want that. You want to see all the fleet store only refreshes 3 times a day. You want to see that fleet store 3 times a day, and you want to buy that Razor Crest every time it shows up. The TIE Advanced and Slave 1 Vader ship, those are important. You want to buy them out of the shop. Remember, the more you can buy them out of the shop, the faster you'll be done farming those fleet nodes, the faster you'll be able to use your fleet energy for building relic materials instead of building ships. That's what we want. General Grievous is next. We want to build the Malevolence as our first get-to capital ship. General Grievous is the admiral for the Malevolence. We do want General Grievous unlocked. We want him to get to gear 11. It's nice if we can get him to 7 stars, but it's less priority than the things that are actually in the Executor journey. So prioritize first those 3 things that are the Executor journey, and then the rest. Sunfac and his ship, other Geo ships, Imperial TIE, and Ahsoka's ship. I guess I should make it clear, under the second one with the TIE Advanced, Darth Vader also shows up in the fleet store. So he's the TIE Advanced or Darth Vader himself. Now, if you're a Hyperdrive player, watch for the objectives, because each zone that you complete gets you an objective that gets you Vader shards. So you can go into zone 1, finish the last node, 3-star it, go to hard mode in level 1, 3-star the last hard node, and that should give you completion on zone 1 and give you Vader shards. If you're a free-to-play player, the whole time you're leveling up, pay attention to the objectives. There's tons of objectives that are going to give you Vader shards, and you can eventually get Darth Vader to 7 stars just from objectives and other things in the game. But buying him out of the shop, I think free-to-play, you do have to buy him out of the shop some. I don't think you can reasonably get him to 7 stars free-to-play. But watch those objectives, get all the Vader shards you can from the objectives, and get the rest out of the shop. So line 2 is the TIE Advanced and Darth Vader himself. Okay, so it's the stuff that's really the Executor journey. And then if let's say you have 5,000 fleet currency, so you had your bank of 3,000, you got 1,500 for the day, you're at 4,500, and you see Ahsoka ship or an Imperial TIE or something in there, feel free to buy it. But always maintain your bank so that you can get everything that's at the top of that list every time it shows up. All right, buying Grievous and Razor Crest. If I did the Abtesio account in 2022, I bought the Razor Crest out to finished in about 6 months. There were some free shards in the game that I had access to, so I calculated that if I started at 0 shards, it would have taken me somewhere between 7 to 8 months if I had made all the purchases that I was getting based on the statistics. So 8 months is 32 weeks. We plan to qualify for the Executor in about 38 weeks. So it gives us enough time that statistically we should have plenty of chances to buy out the Razor Crest. Sunfac and his ship are infrequent. TIE Advanced Slave 1 will also be farmed, but get them from the shop as well. Again, you want to free up that fleet energy and make sure that you can use that for building characters to relic level. When it goes to the guild event store, anything that's guild event token 2, so you'll see there's 2 different kinds. There's kind of a closed-in hexagon. That's guild event token 1. And then there's a second kind that kind of has the notch out of it at the top, and that's the guild event token 2. For the guild event token 2, we're only going to spend that on these 2 capital ships, the Malevolence or the Negotiator, right from the start of the game. There is tons of good gear and good stuff in there to buy for Get 2. Don't do it. Only these 2 ships, only ever, until you have them done. That's my advice. Start with the Malevolence, get it to 5 stars, switch over to Negotiator, unlock it at 5 stars, take the Negotiator to 7, then go back around and finish out your Malevolence. That's the long-term plan. If you choose to use the tactic for Bastillation, you'll be buying Veers out of the shop with your Get 1. In the past, I've always recommended for the Guild Event Token 1 to only save it up and use it for Wampa, Hermit Yoda, Gas, Malik, General Anakin Skywalker as Gas. Those are premium characters. This is the way that you get them free to play, buying them out of this shop. It takes a lot of currency, so if you're spending this currency on other stuff, then it takes forever to try to get those characters finished out. So my advice was always sit on it, don't spend it. But with the game state in 2023, my advisement has changed. I think getting the first few relics into your account is absolutely critical. Using that to snowball your income is going to pay itself back. So my recommendation is through your first 3 relic characters, we're going to spend all of our Get 1 on the appropriate gear. For purple pieces that we need for relic levels on characters, and for certain gold pieces, and for Veers. Now, building Veers out of the shop is really not expensive. His purchases, 10 shards for 400. You only need 33 of those purchases. It's about a little over 10,000 total currency, I think. So it's really not that bad. You'll get Veers. It'll take some time to get him, but it won't be that expensive. But through your first 3 relics, I recommend go ahead and use what you have for Get 1 in the shop on gear and accelerate your account. Once you do that, once you're comfortable that you've got some other strategies going and you're getting your relics, then save it up. Don't lock it down. Start saving it up for those premium characters. In the Grand Arena store, once you get to level 85, you get into Grand Arena, you'll get currency for this shop. There are a ton of good things to buy out of here. There's one spot in here where it's got Chirotech shock prods or Chirotech computers. I recommend for probably the first 3 to 6 months, really focus on buying those Chirotech computers. You'll need both the computers and the shock prods, but the shock prod is one of the best nodes in the game to farm, so you don't mind at all if you have to go farm Chiro shock prods. It's fine. Farm those, buy the computers out of here so that you don't have to farm them. Later in the game, when you get your Chiros under control, then you can use this currency for a lot of other stuff, slicing materials, gear, whatever you want. But as a new player, probably even the first year that you're playing, just buy Chiros. The Shard Shop. How the Shard Shop works, once you get a character all the way to 7 stars, let's say you're on that last bit, you need 100 character shards to get to 7 stars. And let's say you have 103. As soon as you get that character to 7 stars, those extra 3 character shards come into the Shard Shop and get converted to this Shard Shop currency. This is where we're going to use the Shard Shop currency to get gear for gold and purple pieces that are used to make relics for our characters. You are going to prioritize above everything else the purchases that cost 360. Those pieces are the parts that are used for the gear 12 to gear 13 to get your characters to relic level. There's 3 slots in there. One of them is a piece of gold gear that's used for the relic parts that are on the left-hand side, and the other 2 slots are purple pieces that are matched up throughout the relic requirements. So as soon as you can get open the shard shop, you're going to start buying those out of here. Now, the more of those you can buy out of the shard shop, and I literally, on my accounts, get to the point where I never farm any of those pieces of gear off a node. I'm always able to buy all of the purple materials out of the shop. I'm always able to buy all of the left side gold Gear 13 parts out of the shop. I never have to farm it, and it saves so much time, it's ridiculous. But that means that you really have to learn how to use the shard shop. This is the alpha shop. This is the most important thing. When I said earlier that the timeline was set, the use of the shard shop is the difference between whether you meet the timeline or miss it. The ability to get in here, feed the shard shop, and get those purchases is absolutely critical to the timeline. How you feed the shard shop, remember, for example, we bought characters out of the Cantina. We bought characters out of the Squad Arena store. We bought characters and ships out of the Galactic War store. Ships convert slightly better per purchase than characters. So in the Galactic War store every day, once we've got the ships that we want built, we're just going to buy those same ships. They're already 7 stars. We're going to make the purchase. We're going to bring the shards that we just purchased over to the shard shop, get the currency so that we can make these purchases. A Snowtrooper will get the 7 stars. Like I said, you open Bronzium packs. You'll continue to get Snowtrooper shards. Those will feed the shard shop. As your account starts to build and you get more and more characters to 7 stars, you'll have more and more stuff to feed the shard shop. And that is really the key to getting these characters reliced in a reasonable time. So you're going to use all your Bronzium packs and the shop currency that you can afford, Cantina, Squad, Galactic War Store, and shove that stuff over to the shard shop and keep making those 360 cost purchases. Okay. If you don't leverage this in the right way, sometimes I've heard people say it took them 6 weeks to relic a character. Once you get the account fully up and running and developed, somewhere around 10 days, you can relic a character every 10 days free to play using this method. Early in the game, your first relic will take you 4 weeks, most likely. And then after that, it'll take 2 to 3 weeks for each relic that you build until you get the account up and running and get that smoothed out. It'll go down from 2 weeks to less than 2 weeks, and it'll keep going as you go. But don't be surprised if your first few relics really take a long time. But then we want to get that down to a 2 to 3 week cycle on relics. Conquest store. Once you get into Conquest, you'll start getting Conquest currency. I don't purchase anything out of the Conquest store. When you're in Conquest itself, within one of the first few zones, you'll unlock a Wandering Scavenger. The Wandering Scavenger will be selling pieces that are used for Gear 13. And again, those gold pieces that are used to take your character from Gear 12 to Gear 13, those are invaluable. They're the best. If you convert the value of whatever you can buy with currency in the Conquest, buying those pieces from the Wandering Scavenger is the most efficient use of that currency. So my advice, don't buy anything out of this store for the first year that you play the game. Wait till Conquest is up and running. Use this in the Wandering Scavengers to buy more of those relic materials, speed up your relic cycle. So the summary of shop use: prioritize these shops, get your characters for your first journey, get your account stabilization, get those first 3 teams up and running, and then really you're going to use all that available currency for the shard shop. Once you start getting your relic situation started and under control, then you're going to look ahead for the next journey, and when you're ready for the next characters, we'll build them. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Now the store, right next to the shops, is the store. So just to be clear, there's a difference between the shops and the store. The store is where you can then go and buy things for money. I've put up a picture of the 3 most useful things to buy out of the store. Bronzium data cards, if you're free to play, you're going to buy Bronzium data cards all the time. You're going to unlock those. You're going to get character shards, gear. It's little trinket stuff, but if you take the value of what you get out of there, it's much higher than the value of anything else you could buy in the game with friendship points. And it takes a little bit of time. It's annoying. There's utilities that you could use. You can look that up yourself if you want to use a utility to unlock them. But if you do it in game, you just got to poke the button. But trust me, it's the best use of the friendship points. You're going to want to do it, and you're going to want to get what comes out of there. If you're actually willing to spend money, the Hyperdrive bundle is absolutely the best value in the game. There's nothing that comes even close to it. So the Hyperdrive bundle's in there. And if you want to play the game, then I would say the other most valuable thing you can buy is simply to purchase crystals out of the shop and use those crystals to drive your energy refreshes. Again, if you refer back to the new player guide that I did, it'll explain that in more detail. Here's the biggest nopes in the store, the Chromium data card and the ability to purchase credits for crystals. Now, early in the game, as you level up your characters, you put some skills on them, you start working on mods, you will be out of credits. You will never have enough credits to do what you want. If you go into this shop and you purchase credits, you'll be out of credits again. It's a terrible conversion. It's a terrible use of your money. Again, you can do it if you want to, but I'm just telling you the math behind it. It's one of the worst purchases that you can make in the game. In a lot of games, the gacha games like this, the best thing you can do is go into the random shard generator and do a whole bunch of summons and try to get the characters that you want. In Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, the ability to get the character shards is a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10, and the ability to gear those characters up is 9 out of 10 on that same scale. So the Chromium data cards are a horrible deal. It's completely random. You're not going to get enough shards for the character that you want to even care about. So never buy the Chromium data cards, the fleet data cards, the basic stuff like that. It does not work for this game. Okay? They also have an online store. The link is here. Or you can just do a search, an internet search, and say Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes SWGOH online store. You'll see the link for it. You'll be able to bring it up, and it'll say, hey, you can link your account in the game. It'll tell you how to do that, and it'll give you extra loot. So basically, you go in through a web browser. You go to this store. You go to log in. It'll say, hey, I sent you an email. You go to the email. It's a five-digit code. You put in the 5-digit code and go into the online store, and you can buy things like that mystery box that was there. It will not show up in the in-game store. So if you're in the app and you go to the store, it's not there. You go to the online store, there's free stuff. And this is a representation of what you get out of a daily chest. You might get energy, you might get skill materials, you might get a few character shards. And again, it doesn't look like much, but that Omega material is a good deal. You want that. You're early in the game. You don't have enough Omegas. We got one for free for taking 30 seconds to go log into the online store. Whether we got these characters or not, we're either getting shards for characters for the future, or we're feeding the shard shop with 5 character shards. Again, for free, for nothing, for going to this online store, clicking the button. So this is one of those things where, yeah, it can be annoying and maybe you don't want to do it, but it's a way to get more free stuff. So why is there an online store as well as an in-app store? So just to be clear, if EA sells something through the application, they have to pay the application owners for the right to do that, and it costs them part of the premium. If you go to their online store, you're buying directly from them. You still get it in the game. They don't have to share the profit. And in order to direct you to the online store where it benefits them if you go there, well, they're going to give you free stuff to go there. So that's the idea. They're trying to entice players to go to the store to help them get more profit when they do make purchases. So it's fine. I mean, it's a gimmick, but bottom line, it's free stuff. It puts you ahead of players who don't use it. All right, so we talked extensively about the shops, the stores, all that stuff. So now we're ready to focus in on this first fleet. And the first fleet that we're really going to build is the Executrix with Tarkin, the 3 Geo ships, the Spy, the Soldier, and Sunfac. That Vulture droid, we're just trying to get that unlocked at least to 4 stars, maybe to 5 if we can get it there. And we're going to be spending a lot of time on the Houndstooth. Now, the Houndstooth is part of the Executor journey, but the more we can build up Bosk and the Houndstooth early on, the more it's going to help us in fleet. So these 5 ships in early fleet, the Geos are really good if you just start with all 3 Geos. You can reinforce with the Houndstooth and the Vulture droid. And we're also building Anakin's ship that you can use as a reinforcement. And that, as an early fleet, will beat almost anything else that anybody builds as an early fleet. So you're in good shape. There will be somebody probably in your shard that spends money. So maybe the first spot or 2 are going to be taken up by somebody who goes crazy spending money. Don't worry about it. If you're free to play, the Hyperdrive bundles are all going to start ahead of you. Don't worry about it. About 20 weeks in, you're going to pass them all up and never look back. At level 78, as you level up, you get a Fleet Material Challenge 3 under the Executrix. That challenge has Zeta materials in it. Zeta materials are special in the game. They're hard to get. You only get a limited amount. The Zetas that you can put on characters change how those characters play. It's so much of a big deal that what you want to qualify for this event as soon as you hit level 78, you want to be ready to go, get it unlocked, get those Zeta materials. This challenge shows up 3 times a week, 2 Zeta materials every time. That's 6 Zeta materials every week. You can't afford to miss it. The challenge is a bit confusing. I admit when I did my Darth Loquitur account a couple years ago, I got tripped up on this too. So I'm going to say it a couple times. It requires a 5-star Executrix, which requires 5 dark side ships all at 4 stars. The challenge itself requires 6 total ships at 5 stars. Well, if we need 5 dark side ships anyway, it makes sense that 5 out of those ships are just going to be the same dark side ships that we use for the Executrix. But we do have some freedom with that 6th ship. Now, I'm going to propose the TIE Silencer as the 5th dark side ship. In prior guides, I've advised people to build the Vulture droid and to farm it twice a day. You can refresh the node and farm a hard node 5 more times during the day, forced farming, whatever you want to call it, and try to get that Vulture droid to 5 stars. That's how I recommended it in the past. But now, because we're doing 6 hard farms for this build, there's no room for it. So instead, we're going to slide over the Cantina, and we're going to look at the TIE Silencer and Kylo Ren Unmasked. We've already got him earmarked in the journey earlier, so that's the plan. If you don't want to do that, then you do have to try to figure out how to get that Vulture droid. So the material challenge will look like this. You'll have the 3 Geos at 5 stars. You need the Imperial TIE and the TIE Silencer all at 5 stars. I show the Vulture droid in there. It's an option. It's kind of floating in there as an option. But that's it. That's your 5 dark side ships. And then because Ahsoka's ship is just so easy to get, and it's also useful, we're going to build that as our 6th ship, and it has to be at least 5 stars. All right. Recap. 5 dark side ships at 4 stars. 3 Geos, Silencer, Imperial TIE. 6 ships at 5 stars. 3 Geos, Silencer, TIE, Ahsoka. Again with the option of Vulture droid if you want to try to do that. Once you start getting Zetas, you're going to want to know where to put them. Again, in past starting guides, Darth Vader's Merciless Massacre is one of the most influential Zetas that you can put on in the early game. Geobrute Alpha Queen's Will, also just insanely good in the early game. However, for this build, I'm going to recommend that the first Zeta goes to Piet for Emperor's Trap. Second Zeta to Veers for Aggressive Tactician. We are so concerned with getting this trooper team up and running to optimal efficiency that we're going to spend our first 2 Zetas on that trooper team knocking it out of the park. Okay? Then we'll go to Darth Vader with Merciless Massacre, Geo Brute Alpha with that Queen's Will. About the time you get your 5th Zeta, I'm going to recommend Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron as your first Omicron character. And I'm guessing that you'll have your first Omicron about this time. But anyway, so Qui-Gon Jinn needs his Zeta to get the Omicron, figure it out in the timing with whatever makes sense, again, for your statistics and how your account works and how you get Omicrons. Okay? There's no way I can predict that, so it's kind of a placeholder here. For the 6th Zeta, we go back to Darth Vader with No Escape. No Escape removes the opposing characters from stealth when you do Merciless Massacre. You're going to need Darth Vader to work in Conquest, and there are certain Conquest teams where getting the characters out of stealth and being able to use each instance of your Merciless Massacre is really important. So we're going to go back to Vader, we're going to get that No Escape, we're going to pull those characters out of stealth, and we're going to be able to hit them with our Merciless Massacre. Okay, so again, varying advice, but for me, and mostly for Conquest, really think you need to go 2nd Zeta on Vader. I found that I had to on my Optitio experiment, on my locator account. I've needed it, so there it is. As we approach 85, we're in the last stages of what we call Block 0. So Block 0 is getting to 85, getting the fleet challenge unlocked, getting the first few income teams established. And as we're getting to 85, we're not through Block 0, but we're close. So let's take a look now and think about what it's going to look like at 85. So I'm going to tell you some things to expect, just so you know. And if you're on this track and you hit 85 and this is what it looks like, you won't feel like you're, let's say, missing something or behind the 8 ball or whatever. So at 85, we're still going to be working on the Geo fleet under Executrix. I don't expect that we'll have Sunfac in great shape yet as a ship. We're not going to be top 5 in fleet. Most likely the Hyperdrive people are still going to be way ahead of us. So that's okay. Squad Arena, we're going to be number 287, and we don't care. It's the least important of the game modes. You're going to be out of credits. You'll be level 85, and you'll have one level 85 character. You'll have a couple at 80. You'll have you'll have a mess, and you won't have enough credits to get your characters up to 85. That's normal. Taking characters to level 80 costs a certain amount of credits. Taking them from 81 to 85 is just crazy. It's just really a lot of credits that are required. And it's just going to take you time farming, getting events, getting credits, getting stuff out of the game, doing your credit heists, all that stuff. And you'll dump that those credits into your characters and work them up to 85. Key is really focus on those 3 teams that we talked about. Don't go crazy. By the time you get to 85, there should be about a total of 20 characters that you're working on. 6 troopers, 5 Geos, 5 Jedi, and just some miscellaneous stuff like Newt and crew that we built. Okay? Shouldn't be a bunch of characters. But so the credit problem also lends itself badly to mods. People get stuck on mods and they say, okay, well, I don't have any money to work on my mods. What I recommend, and this is a strong recommendation, make a habit, let's say Monday through Wednesday, you just don't spend credits. Don't put gear on characters. Don't level up characters. Just for 3 days, let your credits build up. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then sometime on Wednesday, go in, work on all the mods that you've gotten for the past week. All at once. Do what you can with them. Spend money. Level them up to 15. Use the credits that you have. If there's any credits left over, put them back on characters, and then for the next 4 days, go back to leveling characters. It's not critical. If you have a character at level 83 and you want to take them to level 85, it's not a big deal. It's not going to make that much of a difference, okay? Get them there when you can. You'll get the money. But do save money and work on mods. Let's say, for instance, you're working on 20 characters like I've suggested, and you decide you want to do a 21st character. Taking that character from 2 stars to 7 stars is almost 2 million credits. Taking them up to level 85 is another 6 million credits. Putting their skills on is more credits. So you could easily spend 8.5 to 9 million credits on one character. Just one character getting to level 85, 7 stars, and putting the skills on them. So don't build characters that you don't need until you need them as a way to manage credits. You'll hit level 85 and you'll be stuck on Fleet 5E normal. The node is hideous. You can see here the current state of the game. I snapshotted it. So this is what my game looks like right now. I have never gone back and 3-starred 5E normal. I 3-starred everything before. I 3-starred everything after. Once you can get past 5E, you'll get into hard mode, and you'll probably still get stuck somewhere in 5 hard mode, because the battles get pretty tough once you get into hard mode on 5. But this Fleet 5E is just dumb. It's a whole bunch of TIE fighters. You shoot at them, they dodge. They give the enemy capital ship more turn meter, which gets the enemy capital ship a reinforcement. He brings in more TIE fighters. They dodge, and 3 turns later, the enemy capital ship is already at its ultimate ability and wrecks your whole team, and it goes badly. So don't worry. It's like that for everyone. You need some kind of miracle to get through there until you get a good tank. If you go back and look at my player guides, the character is more important than the ship. You can beat this node with a 4-star Sunfac if your Sunfac character is like Gear 10. So you have to invest in the character. You have to invest in the ship skills, get the ship leveled up. The stars are important, but the character is super important. The character's gear is super important. Houndstooth or Sunfac are going to be needed, and probably both. You'll probably have to start with one of them in play and bring in the other one as your first reinforcement. Houndstooth can soak all the hits from those Imperial ties. They can't really remove his taunt. So once you get Bosk to a decent star level and get Bosk himself up to Gear 11 so that you can fully develop the passive on the Houndstooth, then you'll pass this node with no problem. It'll probably be a 1-star victory like you see here, but you can do it and get past the node. So again, don't be surprised. We have to farm the Mandalorian. He's high up in Fleet 5 hard. So you'll see that his fleet isn't even, his farm isn't even scheduled to start until week 20. So maybe at week 20 you may not even be there, but yeah, it'll take you a while to bust through that. The moral of the story: don't feel like you're winning when you hit 85. It'll come. We're going to start building our first relic, and we're going to start getting ready to propel ourselves forward and start passing people up. The first relic we're going to make for this account, and it's still part of Block 0, is the Snow Trooper. Now, opening Bronzium packs with friendship points, we're going to get the Snow Trooper. If not, I'm going to finish out farming him either on the Cantina or on his nodes. Now, let me be clear. If you look at every character there is in the game, Snow Trooper doesn't even qualify as one of the best characters. You're not going to build the best thing first. You're not going to, break the game. What the Snow Trooper is he is an optimized character. He is the best thing that you can build with the lowest gear cost. So there's other characters that may have even easier gear, but this character has easy gear and a very high impact. We're building troopers anyway. If we take him to Relic 5 is the target. He's going to solve 2 assault battles to at least challenge Tier 1. He's going to solve a lot of the Galactic Conquest stuff. He's going to help us in galactic challenges that come up in the events. So once we get this snowtrooper up and running, he's going to unlock tons of event gear for us. He's going to unlock some more raid damage, all kinds of things. So this is kind of a character that's he's okay, right? Now, there's no point at which your snowtrooper is going to wear out and be useless. When you're done using him with the trooper team, like let's say much later in the game you build the dark trooper and the dark trooper will replace the snowtrooper, then your relic snowtrooper goes with Iden Versio, who we're building anyway, and just those two characters alone can make a kill team for Grand Arena. So the snowtrooper is going to be good. Now, just to put an exclamation point at the end, snowtrooper was my first relic on the Darth Loquitur account, and people question that, and to this day I think it worked out brilliantly. I've been happy with the snowtrooper, and I'm going to recommend him as the first relic in Imperial Doctrine. All right, so the trooper team, obviously they won't all be relics, but what you can do with your trooper team is you'll have Veers. We're going to start building Moff Gideon out of the cantina as soon as we can afford to do that. We're going to have Darth Vader in this team, Admiral Piet, and the snowtrooper. Now, Darth Vader we have to take for relics, take to relics for the Executor journey, Admiral Piet as well. So we'll end up with this little team where we're going to have potentially 2 relic troopers, and for some things we're going to be able to add Vader into this team. Putting Vader in as the 5th trooper is crazy good. This team with Vader in it can beat anything that Conquest is going to throw at you. It's going to beat a lot of stuff in galactic challenges, going to get you better loot from those boxes. And you'll have 3 relics here. You should be able to manage the Cantina energy. You will still need to farm Cantina signal data out of the Cantina for your relic characters, but you'll have to go back and forth between characters and signal data. We all do. We all have to start that way. You have to juggle. You have to find a balance. If you want to know the right balance on refresh strategy for using your energy, again, refer back to my player guides, and I'll talk to you how to do that. All right, around week 13 or 14, the farming slot for Iden has to be changed to Queel. Likely you won't get Iden or the Vulture Droid finish, but I do recommend that later, after you're through with the Imperial Doctrine, you probably will want to finish Iden out to 7 stars and get the Vulture Droid fully functional. So here's the point where I'll bring in the Hyperdrive compatibility. A lot of what we've talked about so far is building the account from 1 to 85. If you're a Hyperdrive player, you're going to start at 85, but do the same things. Build those same teams. Still go after the Bastila Shan Jedi. Still go back and farm the Geos. The Geos are not part of the Hyperdrive bundle, but they're a good team. They're a good fleet. Build them. No regrets. Okay? Now, it will cut some time off the Executor, but let's say it takes 14 to 16 weeks to get to level 85 from level 1. You're not going to reduce the time to get the Executor by 14 weeks. You're only going to be able to reduce it at most by 10 weeks. And again, remember, it's probably going to take us 28 weeks just to get the Razor Crest all the way to 7 stars out of the fleet store anyway. So even if you buy the Hyperdrive bundle, the timing for Executor, no matter how fast you go, is really going to be set on the Razor Crest and how fast you can get those shards, even if you can get everything else to work out faster. But Hyperdrive bundle or not, follow the same plan, still get the same characters, you still need Piet. I still recommend Snowtrooper as the first relic. Exactly the same blueprint, you just get a massive head start using the Hyperdrive bundle. Grand Arena. So as we come up through the block 0 and get ready for our first big journey, we're working on our first relic. What does Grand Arena look like? We're going to take our Geos and we're going to put the Geos in the bottom front zone every time. It's hard for people of equal galactic power to deal with them. We're going to be able to deal with the opposing Geos very easily with Iden and a Snowtrooper, or Veers and a Snowtrooper, he will mow down geos no problem. But for opponents who don't have something, maybe they'll have to use their Vader on that or whatever. But we're going to set the geos on defense and make them beat it. Just a word of warning, the way the GAC system works right now, people who don't play lose. They fall down in rating in GAC. If you're in the absolute lowest tier of Carbonite, you could potentially fight a 7 million galactic power account with 3 galactic legends. It's a player who just doesn't often play. They keep signing up for Grand Arena for some reason and not playing, and they lose rating, and they're at the bottom of the barrel. You can't beat those teams if the opponent plays, but the reason that they're down in Carbonite is because they don't play. So a lot of times you'll get that matchup. You'll only be able to get like 11 banners or some ridiculously low amount. But just because you pushed a couple buttons and played, then you'll get the win. So don't despair. You'll push up through that garbage and get some more fair matchups as you move along. In fair matches, people will have a problem with the geos, and you won't. So you'll also have Qui-Gon Jinn as your first Omicron that you're developing. And that's going to bust through anything that your opponent might be building. Like maybe they've got an early Jedi team with Revan, or they're working hard on Grandmaster Yoda or something like that. The Qui-Gon Jinn team will cut through that. You'll have Vader to deal with something, so you'll have quite a few good teams. So when you look at the blocks, it's basically the Geo fleet on defense. Again, just put it there so your opponent can't beat it. We're working on the Executor, so you're going to have Bounty Hunter ships, you're going to have Anakin ship. You can put a Geo defense down with the 3 Geos and then just some scraps and reinforcements, and you'll still have enough ships to take something good on offense. I suggest working on Home 1 more than Endurance, so the Executrix will be with your Geos, and then you take Home 1 on offense with some Bounty Hunters and the TIE Silencer and whatever else you have. In the other 2 zones, just put trash in front of your fleet. Let your opponent beat it. Don't worry about it. Take all your good stuff on offense. And behind your Geos, put more stuff that's even worse than trash. And again, don't worry about it. If your opponent beats your Geos and they clear those zones, that's fine. You're better off focusing your best teams on offense with this account, because the teams that you're building are better for offense. The Trooper team can work just fine with or without Vader. With Vader in it, if they have a really hard team, you can put the Troopers together with Vader all at once and try to beat a hard team. Qui-Gon Jinn, you'll be working on Bosk, you'll be working on some Bounty Hunters by this time, and that team can get you something. Maybe it'll get you a win against an easier team that can beat up on Phoenix and things like that. And then just to say that the Geos are also very functional in easy conquest. Sorry. Switched over to Conquest and hadn't realized it. Yeah, so the Trooper team, again with Vader, the Bosk Bounty Hunter teams, and the Geos. And then moving into normal Conquest, again, as soon as you can complete easy, you're never going to do easy again. So you get to the end of easy once. The next time you get Conquest, it'll offer you normal. Go into normal. Maybe you can only get even to zone 3. Maybe you won't get a lot of completions. Don't care. By the time you get box 2, you've already achieved as much as you could have achieved in all of easy. The currency is better. The rewards are better. And if you're building this account, by the time you qualify for normal, you should be able to get, very early on with the Obtisio project, I was able to get box 3 and 4 right away. So it shouldn't be a problem to get at least box 3 and 4, work your way up toward box 5 within a couple cycles of Conquest, but don't ever go back to easy. Same thing, once you hit 4 million galactic power and you qualify for hard, you will never go back to easy Conquest. All right, guild goals. So again, we're getting to 85, we're finishing out, we're starting our first relic. Be a good time to go scrounge around, see if we can find a better guild. If you go looking for a guild, you're building Geos, they need to be 16,500 galactic power each to do the Wat Tambor mission in Geo Darkside TB. Guilds are looking for that. even now with the changes to the game and however it all shakes out, Wat Tambor is still a fantastic character. People want it. Early game guilds are going to be doing Darkside GOTB. You're going to have 3 teams. You're going to have troopers, geos, then you're going to have Vader in some kind of team, and you might even have a bounty hunter team that can clear a wave or 2 in the earlier zones for the GOTB. So it's going to look really good for your guild application. If you know that and they know that, it's looking good. I would look for a guild, somewhere between 100 and 200 million galactic power at this point. Somebody who's doing light side Hoth and dark side Geo. If you can get into a better guild, by all means, whether you have friends or whether somebody invites you, get into a better guild. That's fine. But at least try to get into light side Hoth, dark side Geo at this point. And again, being in dark side Geo will get you more guild event token 2. That is going to get you the Malevolence capital ship. Even though we're building the Executor as our first big project, we still want that Malevolence as fast as we can get it. All right, block 1, that's where we build our Executor. This is our first big journey. We're going to try to take over the fleet shard. We're not going to stop building the Geos. We're going to get that Malevolence to 5 stars. And anyway, at some point in Grand Arena, you need fleets on defense, you need fleets on offense. Once we get the Executor, we can put it on defense for the rest of our life, and we'll still have the Malevolence fleet to take out whatever the opponent has. And fleet in Grand Arena, having superiority in fleet translates very often to a win, at least for me. Before we look at the detail, let's recap the account building strategy. I always talk about building in 3 layers, and we'll talk about some difficulties that you're going to face along the way. Remember that your first tier of account building, the thing that you need to focus on every day, is the work for your relics. Especially with fleet energy, you're going to farm whatever fleet node you have to farm. Then you're going to get into your character. You're going to look at what relic pieces you need for the right side. You're going to farm things like the furnaces, the HoloLenses, the Mark 12 data pads for the right side relic pieces for your character. And you're going to farm those every day until you get that character relicked. If you need injector handles, any leftover light side or dark side energy, you're going to farm injector parts or whatever you need for those relics. So the first tier for your farming is always got to be you're thinking about how to relic your characters. The second tier, you have all these characters in between. So you've got your journey characters that you're trying to build up to gear 12. You've got some other character teams that you're trying to get going. You're trying to get your Geos fit for the Wat Tambor mission, maybe some more gear on your troopers, all that stuff. So that all goes into tier 2. And then tier 3 is the shards that you're farming for the requirement characters. And in this case, specifically, Beskar Armormando, Razor Crest by block 1, that's really what you're working on, right? So every day, you're going to do your hard farms and get those character shards first. All the rest of your energy is going to go toward relicking a character. And then the gear that you apply, you have to prioritize getting your journey characters to gear 12 so you can continue to relic them. And then any leftover gear you use on your project characters. And you don't keep starting 35 other new teams that waste your time, gear, and credits. All right, so we're going to use the shard shop to the max potential. Again, I got a gear guide on that. You can watch it. It's going to help you. Use your guild event token 1 for a lot of that relic material, especially for the first 3 relics. Snowtrooper, we're going to try to get Vader, Piet, and Snowtrooper as the first 3 relics. If it doesn't work out that way for your account, maybe you just didn't get enough Vader shards or whatever, that's fine. You can bring forward Boba Fett or a different character or whatever. But for the first 3 characters that we relic for this account, we're going to be using guild event tokens to boost that, to accelerate that rate. The income from the assault battle on this team is going to pay back the investment, get it online. The assault battle team, the Imperial troopers are going to do 2 assault battles to challenge tier 1. We're not really going to get a lot of the other stuff up and running in this Executor journey right away, so you really have to get those troopers and get assault battles to challenge tier 1 at least for those two, right away. Thus the Relic Snowtrooper. Now, for the one sticky part. In order to do the Executor, it has a requirement for 2 characters to be taken all the way to Relic 8. Relic 8, at the time of this holocron, is quite challenging in the game. It takes a part called Aero Magnifiers that are part of high-level galactic wars, territory wars, and the challenge tier pit raid. And as a new account, a new player, you're not going to get any of that. So getting access to Relic 8 materials only happens if you've got a friend or somebody who brings you into a really high-level guild and somehow agrees to carry you, or you just have to buy them. And for most people, that means you buy them. They're in the weekly shipments. It's a weekly shipment, which means it can only be purchased once per week. It looks like this, and in the shop, usually they have one set of purchases for 5 for $12.50 or 10 for $2,500. And once you purchase it, it'll go dark and you won't see it again till the next week. If you wait until the end of your journey and then try to get these Aero Magnifiers and get your Relic 8 characters, you will be set up for failure. So what you need to do, as soon as you start block 1, you need to start thinking about your crystal spending, saving, and managing purchases slowly over time. Now, I've set the timeline for several of the relic cycles to 3 weeks. That's to allow you to balance between getting crystals, doing Cantina refreshes, getting signal data, and then saving up some crystals for these Aero Magnifiers. If we need $12.50 for 5, 8 purchases total, we need 10,000 crystals to be spent, but it's over a 38-week journey. That's 9.5 months. So if you think about that, really, you have to do one purchase. So let's say we discount 12 weeks of time up front, and we say, okay, we've got 26 weeks or even 24 weeks that we have to make this purchase. That means you have to make one purchase every 3 weeks. So it's not that you have to save up, 1,300 crystals a week for these purchases. Just, over the course of a couple weeks. And what I did on my Aptitio project, when I got my payout for my Grand Arena, I got the crystals from Grand Arena after the event is over. So let's say I had a 2-in-1 season. I get that payout on a Monday. Those crystals come in. That's when I would make my purchase, right then when I had the crystals. And then, hey, I don't have them for refreshes. So, okay, then I struggle back to even and work from there. But yeah, you only have to do a purchase every 2 or 3 weeks and you'll be fine. But if you don't plan for it, if you don't think about it, if you don't start setting aside some crystals and making these purchases, you will not complete the journey. Getting a Relic 8 character also needs impulse detectors. Impulse detectors have a notoriously bad exchange rate at the Jawa Scavenger. You can see the parts there, the Mark 12 gold parts that break down for impulse detectors. You need a lot of them. Now, the good news is, remember how we're using that shard shop? We're buying these things every single time they show up in the shard shop. We're force feeding the shard shop. We're doing everything we can to make these purchases. But yeah, so we'll get those materials. We can also buy them from that wandering Jawa Scavenger. Again, different ways to try to get the stuff going. But ultimately, you will probably have to spend some time farming Lightside 9F. That has the Mark 12 bayonets. It's a really good node in the game. It also has Mark 8 bio that you see there. It has Mark 3 holo projectors. It's got Mark 2 holo projectors to break down for other relic materials. So this is really a node that just gives you a lot of stuff that you want anyway. So as you're going through block 1, trying to get these characters to Relic 8, can't find your impulse detector materials, farm here. This is where you're going to want to get your stuff. Okay. Again, I've said it like 30 times now, and I'll say it again. Shard shop. The way to succeed, you got to get this stuff out of the shard shop. All right, so now we've talked about the block farming visual. We went through it at first. We're coming back to it again now. We've talked about all this stuff, so we're going to refresh ourselves. What we did, we started out in the first 10 weeks of playing the game, assuming that we're starting at level 1. We started with the Dark Trooper, Anakin, Range Trooper, and as soon as we get the nodes available, we switch over to Piet, we switch over to Houndstooth. So we're farming Piet, Anakin, Houndstooth, Iden, Bosk, IG-2000. In this case, I still recommend farm Bastila instead of Veers is an option. Buy Veers out of the shop. You have to get on these nodes as soon as you unlock them. As soon as the Houndstooth node is available to farm, you need to be farming the Houndstooth node. If that happens earlier than week 7, get on in there. If it happens at week 9, get on in there. Whenever it shows up, you got to get on top of it. Slave 1, TIE Advanced, and Sunfac, we're going to farm from the fleet and also buy out of the fleet store. Rebel Y-Wing also has Grief Karga on it. Used to be that was the only node for Grief. Grief is now also on the IG-11 node, so you should be able to get him at the same time. But if for some reason, IG-11 doesn't give you enough Grief shards, there's also an option for that once you get one of your fleet farms finished up. All right, weeks 11 to 20. So this is kind of, we're approaching level 85, going into our first relic cycle, finishing up block 0, right? This is the transition between block 0 and block 1. After Jedi Knight Anakin, we're going to go back to Veers or back to Bastila. IG-11, Cara Dune, if you start them on the respective weeks where they show up here, they'll be just in time for the Beskar Armor Mando and Razor Crest for the journey. Mando starts in week 20 because fleet is hard. Drop Iden for Queel. We talked about that already. And then Relic Snowtrooper, maybe starting week 13 or so. Even if you're not at level 85 yet, it's easy for you to go on SWGOH.gg, look up what materials you need to relic the Snowtrooper, and you can already start farming ahead and figuring out what injector part you need and what materials you need to relic that Snowtrooper. So at least by week 13, you need to be actively farming the materials to relic your Snowtrooper. Weeks 21 to 30, now we're in a serious relic cycle. You can see we're going back and forth between 2-week and 3-week cycles on relics. And again, that's to give you enough time to make sure that we've got plenty of room. You see, like Boba Fett, I've given you 4 weeks to relic Boba Fett. That's a block of time where you'll be relicking Boba Fett to relic 8, which means you'll have to get his relic materials, you'll have to get his impulse detectors. So I built in extra time there to try to allow that an early game account's not going to have that very easy. All right. Work through your relics on Piet, Boba, Bosk, Dengar, and just note that you may not get either Piet or Boba Fett to relic 8 right away. That's okay. Get them to relic 5, then to relic 7, then work them up to relic 8. And if that's the last thing you need to do, then at some point you just got to stop what you're doing and finish it out. Right? You can't qualify for the journey until you get them there. Weeks 31 to 42. Now the intent here is that if you look, we finish up the Imperial TIE Pilot in week 38. So 38 weeks into the journey, that's the first point where we would qualify for the Executor. And for a lot of people, it'll probably be on the 16th of the month when you actually get your TIE Pilot relic, because right now the Executor event happens on the 15th of every month, so then you'll have to wait another 29 days. No, so yeah, you can only do the event once every month as it currently stands. Maybe at some point that'll be in the journey guide and it'll just be open for you to do whenever you finish. But at the time of this holocron, you have to wait for the event to actually be active in order to get the capital ship into your account. So if you finish in week 38, you still may not get it till week 40 or something like that. It's okay. The key is get qualified for the event. Next time it shows up, get in there and get your Executor capital ship. Now, Beskar Armor Mando as a character is not a requirement for the Executor journey, but the Razor Crest is. Having him at gear 12 or gear 11 or gear 8 or whatever for the event makes everything a little bit harder. So we do want to relic Beskar Mando. We may or may not have him relicked in time for the event, but if you can have him gear 12 with at least a couple pieces on him, that'll help a lot. So get whatever gear you can on that Beskar Mando and try to take him to relic as soon as you can. Cad Bane is also a part of the Xanadu Blood. Cad Bane's ship is part of the Executor fleet. We did not have time to farm the Xanadu Blood within all of the other farms that we had to do. So you'll see in week 24, Xanadu Blood starts up in here. And we'll be farming that for a long time. By the time we get the Executor in this build, you're probably looking at a 5-star Xanadu Blood with a bunch of work left to go to get him to 7 stars. That's okay. If you have a Relic Cad Bane in a 5-star Xanadu Blood, it's okay. You'll get there. You'll still beat everything else that's not an Executor. And at this point, there shouldn't be a lot of people that have Executors. So you'll be able to get to the top of fleet, no problem. And if not, then that's, we're going to finish it out. We're going to finish out Cad Bane to Relic. I didn't spell out timing for Cantina farms. So remember, we need Spy, Soldier, Geobrood Alpha, Moff Gideon, all out of Cantina. So those characters you'll have to farm up at some point. There's some other characters that we may want to unlock out of Cantina. I don't know how you're going to settle in on your refresh strategy, on the timing on your Cantina characters. When I started trying to put down expectations for that, I found that it really, I feel like anything that I put down is going to be different for different players. So for the Cantina stuff, I'm just going to say, you have to figure it out. You have to balance your refreshes. You have to do the right thing. And again, if you can't get enough crystals to do all your refreshes on regular energy every day, then you may just take an extra 4 weeks on your journey. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. So don't worry if you can't meet the timing. You can only meet the timing if you really efficiently optimize your spending. Okay? So it should be doable for most players, but if you get behind, don't panic. It's fine. Other things to do. So as we go through block 1, remember, when we're finishing out block 0, going into block 1, getting our first relic, we don't want to be doing anything with any characters other than just feeding the shard shop, right? We don't want to be building characters out of the Galactic War Store. We just want to be buying, making purchases with the Galactic War Store, sending it to the shard shop, and forcing those first few relics. Okay? But as we get to be, let's say, 3 relics in, we've got our Snow Trooper done, we've got Vader done, we've got either Piet or another one of the good requirements relicked. Now we can start, leaning back a little bit and start using some of that shop currency for some unlocks. Okay. Now the Phoenix get you Thrawn. The Phoenix have been a long maligned team. They're just not. They don't survive to the end game. In the early game, they can be useful, but they fall off very quickly, and they're bad. But it's still the only way that we can get Thrawn. Thrawn is a character that we like. We want him in almost any account, and the synergy that he has with our Imperial Doctrine is good enough that that we're gonna take a little bit of a detour and we're gonna pick up Thrawn. So we're not going to do the Phoenix right away, but later on in block 1, if we haven't unlocked Emperor Palpatine yet, I don't know if you're just going to randomly get Rebels from somewhere, but probably not. So at this point, we need to get some Rebels. We'll do Phoenix. That'll get us Emperor Palpatine. It'll also get us Thrawn. They don't need too much gear. Gear 8 or so is fine. Hera would be another Cantina farm. Ezra, you can either farm him off the Cantina, or he actually comes out of the fleet store as well. So by this time, you should have your fleet spending really well under control. You're buying Razor Crest, you're finishing up Grievous, and the fleet currency should be available for you to pick up Ezra. Again, it's only 33 purchases total that you have to make, so he's not hard to pick up out of the fleet store. So the Phoenix team gets you Thrawn. You got Jedi, especially if you went the Bastila route. You should have plenty of Jedi to unlock Grandmaster Yoda. Again, he's fine to have, but probably not a character we're going to go all in on with this build. Geos can be used to unlock the Padme event, all the way to 7 stars. There's a little bit of a trick to it. You just have to be wise about how you use your Geos and how you use the Execute on Geo Spy. I do have a video on how to unlock Padme with Geos on my channel. You can look that up if you need to. You should have plenty of Empire stuff to get R2-D2. Again, you can get him, but I wouldn't invest too much in him. The Bounty Hunters. So we're building toward Executor. You're going to get some Bounty Hunters. You've got Boba Fett, Bosk. You've got to build the Mandalorian and Greef Karga for the Beskar armor journey anyway. My advice, build Aurra Sing. We want her for the leadership. We don't care if she's the best character in the world. We want her for her leadership. Now this team, under the Aurra Sing leadership, you can get a sequence where Bosk goes first, another character goes, triggers Bosk, does the mass assist, Greef Karga does the mass assist, and Aurra Sing's contract will be done before the Mandalorian takes his first turn. That'll get him the disintegrate, and you can disintegrate a character on the first turn with this team. Some teams you just need to get rid of that one character. For example, if the opposing team, let's say the opponent is building SLKR and they have a Kylo Ren unmasked at Relic 7. For most early game players, you're not even able to kill a Relic 7 Kylo Ren unmasked. But this team can go in there very easily and disintegrate the Kylo and probably clean up whatever's left over. And if not, you can bring in another team to deal with it. So I suggest this. Again, the team will look something like this. A Relic Boba Fett eventually, Relic Bosk eventually, a weak Aurra Sing, and then Mandalorian and Greef Karga in there to make the combo work. With the rest of the scoundrels that you get, you can build a Beskar armor team with Dengar, IG-88, Queel, and IG-11. And the team might look something like this. I like Queel, so in this case, you see Queel went all the way to Gear 12 and has a Zeta. You may or may not have that. But still, Mandalorian can go in this team. Queel and IG become a little tank unit. Dengar and IG-88 and IG-11 are all doing area effect damage to get the Mandalorian the maximum amount of whistling birds, and that becomes a functional team. The Bounty Hunter team, you'll get enough Bounty Hunters, you're relicking a bunch of Bounty Hunters, that also can unlock the Chewbacca event. And the ships that you get, you're building Bounty Hunter ships, so you'll get Han's Millennium Falcon. But my advice, don't get distracted by that right away. Literally, you can't build everything. So even though you can access all of this stuff, make sure you keep your focus on the journey and on your assault battle team with the troopers, getting the Geos ready for the territory battle, and everything else you see here is secondary. Among all of those things, I would say the most useful thing that you could do would be to invest in the Padme team. Padme's good, Jedi Knight Anakin, all the stuff in the Padme team is useful for later. So out of all the other stuff you're working on, if you're going to gear anything, do it with Padme. And remember, Bastila can be in the lead and it's a Jedi team. Padme goes in the lead, it's a Padme team. Omicrons. So let's talk about Omicrons now that we're in Block 1. I do suggest that the first one is Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron. The reason for that, the boost from the Omicron is based on the character's speed. You can have a Gear 8 character at 250 speed. He gets 30 extra speed from Qui-Gon Jinn's leadership, and then 30 times his speed in offense. So even if your character is, let's say we could get a character to 270 speed, it's 300 under Qui-Gon lead. 30 times that would be 9,000 offense gets added to a Gear 8 character. So this Omicron works regardless of the gear level that you have in your character. It makes the Jedi insane. Some people have said before, why would I do that? I've got Padme. It's a Padme team. What happens to Padme? Who cares what happens to Padme? Who cares? It's a Padme team everywhere in the game. And when you go into Grand Arena, it's a Qui-Gon team. It's that simple, right? Everywhere else, Padme's in the lead. In Grand Arena, Qui-Gon's in the lead. You'll be happy with this. The team hits so hard, it's crazy. Second one is Iden Versio. And again, this is another Omicron that works independently of gear level. In fact, if your other troopers are better than Iden, the AI has a tendency to target the weakest character. If Iden is your weakest character, you get a Zeta honor, you get the Omicron honor. Every time she gets killed in Grand Arena, she comes back to life. The AI kills her over and over, while the rest of your troopers just kill everything. It's really good. The third is Mara Jade. Again, irrespective of gear level, you see this team here with Mara Jade, Omicron, 4 stars, bad gear. This team is terrifying in territory wars. It's a garbage team, but we've got this Relic Vader. Mara Jade's going to go first. She's going to do area effect skills, get debuffs, do another turn, take away everybody's turn meter. Vader's going to go start killing everything. The team works irrespective of Mara Jade's gear. You can put Thrawn in this for Grand Arena, and it works just fine in Grand Arena too. For the fourth one, SWGOH has come out as quite the monstrosity. He's a shop character. He's easy to buy. He takes a bit of gear to gear up, but even at low gear, gear 9, gear 12, that range, you're already going to be able to, if you get a fair matchup with other people that have similar characters, let's say they have like a gear 10 and 11 Ewok team, he's going to go chew through that with no problem. So it's a nice opportunity for an easy character to get without having to farm, and it's a very effective Omicron. Zam Wassel can also be nice. We're building a lot of bounty hunters. Zam really soups up a bounty hunter team. The problem is, if you could add her to the Aura team in place of Boba, that speeds up the team. And against some early game players you'll be playing against in Grand Arena that have bad mods, putting this team together with Zam in the team speeds it up even more. And you can even get the Annihilate off on teams like General Anakin Skywalker and things like that. And if Mando disintegrates gas, he just goes away. So it's something to consider if you like Grand Arena and you want to use Zam in that way. If you're not willing to gear Zam, really Zam's benefit is based on how well she's geared. It's another character that you have to think about gearing. So if it really doesn't fit and you don't have the room, then also could take a look at Traya. But I think 5 Omicrons takes us through block 1 with no problem. Those are my recommendations. Just a note, in the future, I do recommend that you keep this like 1-to-4 ratio. Even if you love Grand Arena, don't put all your Omicrons in Grand Arena Omicrons. Put one on every now and then for territory wars or territory battle to help out your guild. I think it's fair, right? And there's a few other good territory war, territory battle Omicrons that you can use. Let's talk about Zetas for block 1. We finished up with number 6 being no escape on Vader. We're going to continue with on the hunt for Bosk. With assuming we get Emperor Palpatine unlocked somewhere in here, we're going to Zeta Emperor of the Galactic Empire. Jedi Knight, and then we're going to kind of go into ZETA-ing the Padme team, because we're going to need it for Conquest. The teams that we have are pretty good, but we need this Padme team to take out the kinds of teams that Darth Vader can't deal with, right? Vader and the troopers can deal with a bunch of stuff, but there's certain teams in Conquest that are going to go too fast. They're going to go first. They're going to go ahead of your troopers, and you're probably going to lose them. Padme is the opposite. She can soak several incoming hits, recover just fine, and finish it out. So we're going to want to build a Padme team. So we're going to do Jedi Knight Anakin, both of the ones on Padme, and Ahsoka. General Kenobi's going to be coming in from raids. He'll be somewhere in here. Maybe he's number 14, depending on how you're getting him out of the raids. Iden Versio is in there somewhere. If we're going to do the GAC Omicron for Iden Versio, we also need the Zeta. So I put it at number 10, but just realized that, somewhere in here, the one for Iden isn't necessary unless you plan to put this Omicron on and use it in Grand Arena. All right, Block 1 Grand Arena strategy. The Omicron Qui-Gon Jinn team will become the hardest defense at the point where you put the Omicron on. So at that point, we're really going to try to get Anakin to gear 12. The team has to include Qui-Gon, Anakin, and Mace. Once Qui-Gon is killed, the team becomes vulnerable. While Qui-Gon's alive, the rest of your Jedi can't be killed. So if you've got Mace in there as a tank to put up his taunt and be a distraction, it makes it harder for your opponent to kill Qui-Gon, leaves more time for Jedi Knight Anakin to do the work of killing the other team. So if you're ever going to put it on defense, it has to include Jedi Knight Anakin, has to include Mace. If you are not willing to put those two characters with Qui-Gon, for whatever reason, do not put him on defense. Doesn't mean you can take him on offense and use him with other scrub Jedi. You can do whatever you want if you're on offense and in control of the matchup. If you put him on defense, has to be Anakin, Mace. All right, in 5v5s, you would add in Ahsoka, and probably at this point, Grandmaster Yoda. Set that team in the bottom front as your big defense. The Geo team will be hard for most opponents to beat. This is the Geo fleet, right? The Geo fleet, whether or not we have Malevolence yet, once we get Malevolence, still, we're going to put that on defense. Looks a bit something like this. So, Home 1 or Executrix or Malevolence, whatever we've got with the Geo ships. Once we get a good bounty hunter team, you're probably better off putting Home 1 with the Geo ships and taking the bounty hunters under Executrix on offense. You got the Omicron Qui-Gon Jinn team there in the bottom front, and then your trash teams, and again, you're taking the majority of your good stuff on offense. On offense, you're going to have several good teams. You'll have the Iden Troopers. That's Geo's, early Jedi Knight Revan teams, a bunch of different things. You've got the Veers Troopers with that Relic Snow Trooper, either with Iden or Veers, depending where you need it. You've got Vader that you can put in his own team or with Emperor Palpatine. Geos are on offense. You've got this Aura Singh Bounty Hunter team, and you've got a Beskar Armor Mando Scoundrels team. So tons of good stuff on offense, and if you've been able to invest some in Padme, by the end of Block 1, you should also have a good Padme team floating around in here as well. In Conquest, the Trooper team with Vader is going to fade out if you don't get Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon will then become one of your critical characters for mods. If you can get him to Gear 12 with 6-dot mods, put your best speed mods on him, he can go first in Conquest for a lot of normal. If he goes first, put on Demoralize, drain their turn meter, whatever's appropriate. It'll get you a lot of 3-star wins in Conquest. Emperor Palpatine could also get up and running with Vader. You've still got your ranged trooper from before that you can throw in with your trooper team, so there's some mix and match stuff that you've got there. If you've got Padme, Anakin brought up, they'll serve pretty well in normal as well. Ideally, we want to get that Anakin to Relic at some point, but not within Imperial Doctrine. Get your big fleet first. All right. In normal Conquest, Geos do become pretty ineffective. You'll have a hard time making Geos work. Maybe in the future, discs will change and things will change and Geos will be a more effective team, but as of right now, they don't work that great. Bounty Hunters also, just from the way that the Conquest stuff works, the Bounty Hunters are relatively ineffective. I don't expect that this build is going to get through all 5 zones of normal Conquest by the time you finish Executor. I feel like that could be a stretch. Still some account development needed. More work on a Padme team, something like that is going to be needed to get through normal. If you can get through maybe 3 zones, 4 zones, get into zone 4, I think that would be pretty normal by the time you're done with the Executor. I expect your galactic power by the time you're done with Executor, somewhere around 2 million to 2.5 million if you did the hyperdrive. The next block needs, with this build, your next block, whatever you choose next, has to be something that you plan not just for normal Conquest, but for hard Conquest. The next journey, the next big journey you do is going to put you at or above 4 million galactic power. It comes up fast. We got to be ready for hard Conquest. Again, remember, if you go back to my player guides, right at the first, Fleet Arena is absolutely the most important. Once we've got our placement in Fleet Arena established, we have to flip and focus everything on hard Conquest so that we can get those massive free characters out of hard Conquest. Guild goals. As we finish up with our Executor, the likelihood is if you followed this journey, you've passed up most of the other people at the same GP in your guild. Now, if you're in a competitive guild, maybe other people are keeping up and you stick with it, and it's fine. But a lot of people are going to find that 150 million GP guild that you joined at Block 0 is 170 million galactic power now. It's not much different than when you joined. And at this point, it's time to bail and find yourself an even better guild. Look for something that's doing light side Geo, light side, or dark side Geo, or doing the new territory battle that's just been introduced into the game. So look for a better guild. I would say at this point, with the Executor, with troopers up and running, with decent account, you should be able to get into an account over 200 million galactic power. Sometimes when applying for guilds, they're going to ask you for certain characters or teams. Maybe a guild is working on Kiadi Mundi and you go to join and they say, okay, but you got to build a clone trooper team. You would really have to tell them no. If you're not done with your Executor journey, the option is, okay, fine, I'll build the clones when I'm done with Executor. And if they say, nope, as soon as you join, you got to work on clones, then take a pass. You really have to stick with it, finish the journey you started, get that Executor into your account before you consider doing anything else. After that, if there's a guild requirement, do what makes the most sense for you to get into the best guild that you can get. So let's talk about the Executor. We finish out the Executor. The Razor Crest is at 7 stars, but Beskar hasn't been required to be reliced for the journey. Xanadu Blood's not part of the journey, but definitely needed. So when the Reqs are finished, we're going to relic Beskar Mando. My recommendation, we're only going to take him to Relic 1. We're going to take Cad Bane to Relic, but only to Relic 4. Now, Relic 5 is a thing. That's where characters get qualified to go into the challenge tier Rancor pit, and it's required for a lot of stuff. But especially before you get your Executor 7 stars, when you're a 4 and 5 star Executor, the timing of these ships is important. I have found that the 4 star and 5 star Executors are much better if your Xanadu Blood is slower than the opponent's Xanadu Blood. Most people just take their Cad Bane to Relic 5, and their Xanadu Blood is, a certain speed. If you take your Cad Bane to R4, you can keep it 1 speed lower, maybe 2 speed lower than theirs, and that works out well for the timing. Now, ideally for the timing, your Razor Crest needs to be 1 speed slower than your Xanadu Blood. Again, this is just my experience. It's It's how I was able to beat 7-star Executors with no problem with a 4 and 5-star Executor. So that's my recommendation. If you want to take these guys to higher relics, feel free to do it. But at least at first, start out here. Don't get carried away. Don't slap both Zetas and Relic 8 your Beskar Mando and try to make him the best character you can. Focus on the fleet side of it. Get the timing down. You want your Xanadu Blood fastest, your Razor Crest just behind it in speed. That gives you a sequence where the opposing ship goes, their capital ship is faster than yours. They attack your Razor Crest. You use your capital ship to heal up your Razor Crest. Their Xanadu Blood goes, and he'll be out in the open, and the opposing Bosk will not have taunt. You can use your Xanadu Blood, target their Xanadu Blood, call the Razor Crest to assist, mark it, your Razor Crest goes, call an assist, you'll kill the Xanadu Blood, one shot, first turn, and once their Xanadu Blood is dead, you win. You win 75% of the matchups if you can kill that Xanadu Blood on your first turn of the game. All right. In my experience, the timing on that 5-star Executor was great. Just recently on my account, I took the Executor to 6 stars, and I do not like the timing of the ship at 6 stars. It's really a lot worse. So now my capital ship goes before my ships go. Sometimes it's fast enough that it goes before the opposing capital ship goes, which means I can't heal my own Razor Crest, and the whole scenario just fell apart. If I had it to do over again, I would have the Executor at 5 stars, and I wouldn't take it to 6 stars until I was ready to take it all the way to 7, and then I would go to 7 stars, retime the fleet, and build it out from there. What's block 2? So in block 0, we built the account, we stabilized. Block 1, we built the Executor. What's block 2? Well, if you remember, some of our farms ended early, long before we were done relicking and qualified for the fleet, and block 2 is going to fit in under there. So by week 32, all your Executor-related farms are done, but it's still week 38 before you qualify for the event. Because you have to relic that Beskar Mando and Cad Bane, your relic part isn't available until week 43. So you have that 11 weeks between week 32 and week 43 where you need to have picked your next block, and you already need to be farming the stuff for your next block. All right? Using this strategy has worked very well for me. It can work very well for you. You just have to know partway through the Executor journey what you're doing next and start collecting the character shards there so that you don't miss a beat with your relic cycles. Okay? So summary of this whole holocron. Early expectations are explained. Farming strategy set. Team strategy set. 3 first teams. Hyperdrive people, same thing. Shop use, all discussed. Transition out of block 0 to block 1 with that snow trooper, getting some events under control, ready to go. Got advice for closing out block 1. You can proceed with confidence at this point. Imperial Doctrine is not easy, but it's efficient. It's going to work for you. You're going to take over the fleet arena. You're going to get high placement. You're going to get 300 to 400 crystals every day out of fleet. And you're just going to keep snowballing, and you're going to pass up all the hyperdrive people, and you're going to pass up all the guys that are spending money. All right? That's how it works. So what is next? What are you really going to do next? I do plan to continue to make guides like this, including guides that are specifically meant to follow up on Imperial Doctrine. But if you're at a point where you're in a similar situation, or if you don't want to follow a script, then I would say generically, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren at this moment is still very relevant in the game. It's a good journey. You build his own team within the journey. A lot of the Galactic Legend journeys, you build a bunch of stuff, but then you still have to build other characters to build the actual team that you want with the GL. With Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, the requirements that you build to get him unlocked are the team that you're going to use with Kylo, so it's a very efficient journey. The Executor has already built you toward the finalizer fleet requirements, and that getting that GL is going to be the key now to getting into hard conquest, and SLKR does very well in hard conquest. You'll have no problems working your way through hard conquest with an SLKR. So that's a nice flip. If you love GAC, you're in it for the PvP, take a look at Starkiller. 4 good requirements to build Starkiller. Starkiller himself is fantastic. A couple other characters that you need to build for the Starkiller team, but you could very easily bridge from Imperial Doctrine through Starkiller into your next thing, and you take Starkiller as your second block. Those are the 2 things that I could recommend more than anything else that's in the game at the moment of building this holocron, but be on the lookout for more guides that would follow it up. As always, we'll finish it up with saying, reminder to farm your mods. That wraps up Imperial Doctrine. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the like button on the way out. If you didn't hit it on the way in, I would appreciate that. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future, and join us over on Discord. The Loquitur Holocrons is a fantastic Discord community. A lot of experienced players that are willing to help out anybody asking questions. A lot of new players asking questions that get answered. So even if you're not very talkative, you can just come, hang out, watch what other people are saying, learn a ton about the game. The link is in the description of the holocron down below. Click it, free to join. Love to see you over there. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next holocron.